Thank you for staying with us on TVC Breakfast. Well, now to our next leg of discussion. The Yoruba socio-cultural group Afenifere has demanded what it calls an unreserved public apology from former President Olusegun Obasanjo over his recent humiliating conduct towards traditional rulers in Iseyin, Oyo State. They described his action as shocking, saying the former president acted like a military commander, giving orders to his troops. Ayodeji Muradeyo has more.
This is another monthly meeting of the pan-Yoruba socio-cultural group Afenifere held at the residence of its leader, Reuben Fashoranti, in Akure, Ondo State. The meeting was attended by leaders of the group from the southwest states. Briefing newsmen at the end of the meeting, the National Publicity Secretary of Afenifere, Jare Ajayi, called on former President Olusegun Obasanjo to tender an unreserved apology to Yoruba traditional rulers for asking them to stand up at a function in Iseyin, Oyo State.
Afenifere consider this very much out of the courtesy, the tradition and respect that we ought to give the traditional institutions. And for that reason, the meeting today resolved that it calls on former President Olusegun Obasanjo to offer public apology.
Insult Obas and ask us to stand up for chairman of council so our children, when they want election, they come and see us so we can talk to our people to support them. We respect our governors, we respect our president, but there should be protocol respect for the traditional authorities. It's not the person of the Oba.
The group also commended the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal for its brilliant judgment on the electoral dispute. It also asked the federal government and security agencies to be more decisive and proactive in tackling security across the country.
Afenifere give kudos to the five honorable justice, for taking such a painstaking step in examining various aspects of the issues raised in the petition. And it's set a pace in the discharge of electoral cases. Afenifere observed that insecurity has become so dire, and we seize this opportunity to call on the federal government and security agencies to buckle up.
In order to ensure the survival of the Yoruba language as the most important element of the culture of the people, Afenifere resolved that it should be the medium of instruction from primary 1 to 3 in the southwest states. Afenifere also resolved to continue to promote unity among the Yoruba people as well as members of the group. Ayodeji Muradeyo, TVC News, Akure.
And joining us now to discuss this lingering controversy, Jide Ologun is a lawyer and social development advocate. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ologun. It's good to see you again. Where do you stand in this controversy regarding the former President Olusegun Obasanjo's remarks?
Thank you very much for the inclusion in this discussion. And like the Afenifere has, expressed, the traditional leaders are demanding for apology. And the next question now is that, knowing the person of Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, is he going to render such an apology? Because on some of his previous responses, he has maintained a tough ground, and let's also remember that he was a military head of state. And of course, when you were reiterating what happened, he was expressed to have operated in a commando manner. But let's now go to tradition and culture. And to understand tradition is a way of thinking, a way of behaving, or doing something that has been used by the people in a particular group, family, society for a long time. So the tradition in Europe will be different from that in Nigeria, for instance, or in some parts of West Africa. And in the Yoruba tradition, and according to Yoruba tradition, the people were created by Odua, and that Odua means the God who created all the earth. And of course, the first institution that was established was the institution of traditional leaders, because the Odua settled in Nigeria, in Ile-Ife precisely, And then his children were the rulers of the Oyo Empire. So you see that rulers have strong powers over their citizens. And permit me to bring the case of the United Kingdom. Before the Queen departed, and we now have King Charles III, the citizens swear by the Almighty God that on becoming a British citizen, that they will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, and her heirs and successors according to law. So the law recognizes the supremacy of that office. Now, coming back to Nigeria, why is it now that this revered institution is being desecrated? It may be because in one way or the other, we are trying to water down the importance of that institution, particularly in engaging to ensure that we have good governance in the land and impact the people, because I've taken the pain to monitor responses on this issue. While some are asking that Olusegun Obasanjo should apologize, some are saying that can it be that the traditional rulers themselves have even diminished their relevance in the society? And permit me also to express one of my concerns, because respect begets respect. I recall that in July 2023, and our audience can go and check, a governor prostrated for a prominent Nigerian, you see, who is not even a king. And so it's a function of how you want to express your respect. But I am not comfortable with what happened actually. Okay. The kings must be respected. I do not, imagine that King Charles thought we come into the parliament in the UK, for instance. People will be asking that the king should stand for them, or you know what I mean. So it's a revered position, but have we sustained it as a revered position? And that is when we must begin now, as we manage this crisis, to separate politics from traditional institutions. So I am on the side of the fact that these traditional leaders, by right, deserve ultimate respect in the society.
Okay, Barrister, looking at all you have said, now, Obasanjo at a point came out to explain that he had rebuked the Obas for showing disrespect to the state governor at the time, that's Seyi Makinde, at the event in Iseyin. Now, do you suggest, or would you suggest, that the Yoruba socio-cultural group Afenifere should embark on some sanction of some sort? Because you've mentioned that there must be respect for the traditional institutions.
Absolutely. Chief Olusegun Obasanjo himself is a traditional person, in his Owu kingdom and in Yoruba land. He is a holder of many chieftaincy titles. And here, let's see if the traditional council also will be bold enough to exercise the powers they have, to derobe him of some chieftaincy titles, if not all. I've read about such threats. But if there are no consequences, this will continue. And let me say this, on the other side of the coin, I saw a video where governor of Osun State was dancing with the kings. So it's all about your person. So I want us to take this discussion beyond Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, knowing that he has a military background, to the governor himself. There is what we call vicarious liability in law. And so if Chief Olusegun Obasanjo is claiming to have acted in that manner on behalf of the governor himself has a voice. Because what has happened has implications. Have you noticed that during some prominent services in churches, some kings even wear their cap? So do you go to them and say, and the tradition within the church system is that when you are in the presence of God, you remove your cap. And so you can imagine a pastor coming in to say, everybody remove your cap. You cannot remove your cap. Get out of this church. And you see, so we need to pass down these traditions of respect. There are several ways of going about it, than the approach of
Mr. Ologun. All right, it appears we are having some issues with Mr. Ologun, and from what he has said so far, Theophilus, he apparently is also, assaulted, so to speak, by the actions of the former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and he was talking again on the silence. I wanted to also ask about that, the issue of some have said the Obas, or the traditional rulers of our time now, appear to only reign, but in terms of ruling, wielding that influence, because back in the times back, way back then, where the judiciary, the average or the reigning king was the judiciary, he was the executive, he was the legislature, all rolled into one. Of course, he had an arm of advisors, but basically the buck stopped at his table. But that isn't what we are seeing now.
We should understand that times have changed, and so we've moved on to democracy. But it doesn't stop the respect that should be given to the traditional institutions.
Absolutely.
For instance, now you see in Benin City, the respect they have for the Oba of Benin is still very much there, despite the fact that things have evolved, the nation has evolved, the state has evolved, and all of that. Democracy has come to stay. The Benin people still respect the Oba in its entirety. And so you cannot say anything against the Oba where a Benin man is, no matter where he is in this planet. You get it? So the respect for the traditional institution should still remain. That's if you go to some local areas and where they still have the traditional institution intact, the people revere those institutions. That's why we have the reaction that we have seen so far since the situation at Iseyin up till now. People are still reacting to it because the institutions, they believe that the traditional institutions should still be revered, should still be respected, despite whatever would have happened, no matter how far we have moved in this country, the traditional institutions should still be revered.
Also, and there is also the issue of, if it were to be the Oba of Benin or higher ranking traditional leaders, the Oni of Ife, Sultan of Sokoto,
will he do that?
Would he have done what he did? And there's also the issue of, he ordered them to stand up, but then did they have to stand up? Did they know the amount of powers that they had? Interesting views have emanated from since the happenings there in Iseyin or your state, and we've also not seen much reaction from the governor to what happened that day. So whose side is he on? Basically, is he
the
on the
governor has just been silent?
Is he on the side of the former president? Is he on the side of the traditional leaders? And of course, the issue of, like yesterday when we were discussing this, Veronica and I on the show, one of our guests also said something like, the governor is their boss. The governor is their boss. So how then will they not be addressed in the way that they were addressed? But I take your point, and I'm with you on this one. I too was taken aback by the manner. Yes, he is a general, or he was a general. He's used to the issue of command, do as I say. But we know our place. We should know our place. We should know where we are. Yes, if you were taken aback by the way you feel, the way you expect that the governor should have been treated by the Obas, I feel that perhaps maybe there should have been another way.
There should have been another way to address it.
To couch these, because people have said, are they your subordinates? You, as the former president, you also know the influence that that they carry. You are also a top-ranking chief, in your own right, and you are given your respect, wherever you go to. But, in addition to the fact that you're a former president, but the fact that you identify with your roots, also, carry another emblem of influence for him, and so it shouldn't have been him. Shouldn't have been him. Mr. Ologun, we hear you are back. We couldn't, hear you at a point. I wanted to take you up on the issue of, I think you mentioned something about demeaning influence. And, some people have also said that, traditional rulers of our time now only exist. They only reign. They do not rule. They also go on to say that, still reflecting on what happened at the event with the former president, that after all, the governor is the boss of these traditional rulers. What do you make of these arguments?
Arguing over who is the boss may not be as impactful as discussing the relevance of having these institutions. Years ago, I commenced an advocacy when this issue of trying to get Nigeria out of the net of corruption and this poverty journey commenced, that if the traditional rulers in the land, talking about the emirs, the obis, the obas, all of them come together and call the government that come under Section 14 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 amended. Sovereignty belongs to the people. Now, this is the Nigeria we want from you. You cannot deliver it. Don't come to our territory to campaign for votes. Nigeria would have been better. So this is some of the side lashes that may come when we ignore the engagement of the importance of office. I rolled out the case of the UK. The king is so powerful. When the queen was alive, all the way to Australia, to everywhere. Even when the Britons came to colonize Nigeria, the allegiance of Nigeria was not to UK, but to the queen. So we must find a way back to making this authority relevant. And I was talking about the fountain of the word tradition itself. It's derived from the Latin word trade, which literally means to transmit, to hand over, to give for safekeeping. So the big question now is that who are the custodians of our tradition? And that is why this case is very special. Let's see what the Afenifere will do now. Now they are stepping out as custodians of the Yoruba tradition. Let's see if there will be consequences. If there are consequences, then we may succeed in preserving dignity of that institution. If there are no consequences, then real trouble has come. And traditional rulers, they expect that someday they go out there and they are disrespected in worse manners. By the special grace of God, I'm a public relations practitioner, and there are several ways of earning respect when you are planning events that could have been more handsome than what Chief Olusegun Obasanjo did. In fact, I say that even if you try that maybe with some students now, they may resist you, just go in there and command anyhow. So there are ways of approaching issues. But having said all this, there's what we call inarticulate major premises in jurisprudence. And then that takes you into trying to find out who is this personality that is involved in this episode. And I think Olusegun Obasanjo has been involved in several dramatic episodes, but that should not in any way take away the need to redefine the relevance of traditional leadership in the Yoruba land. And I started by comparing notes with some other parts of the world. It may be in some climes in the world, you can even tell the king to get out of the way for you as a younger person. I don't know, but then I think with the trending reactions that we have, this is a matter that should not go under the carpet. So let's see now if the Afenifere can influence the relevant traditional stakeholders to rule out consequences. If not, then the traditional leaders should prepare for worse encounters in the future, because tradition is likely to be redefined now from what happened. It's a very crucial issue. I said it's handed over. So what are we handing over to the next generation? Or are we even going to the point where in the future societies rise up and say we don't need kings? But if you go to the Bible, Pharaoh was very influential in his domain. You talk about kings, even kings who were not doing well. You talk about Ahab, they had authority. So we need to get to the root of this matter and not just throw it aside like the smoke of fire that fizzles into the sky. So those are my positions. And I'm calling on all stakeholders, and I've extended my voice also to the governor of Oyo State, who is in the center of that episode, to also rise up and do an effective crisis management in the interest of.
Okay, so you're saying the governor should embark on crisis management. As a PR expert now, because the governor is in between in all of this, and he's far younger than both parties, I dare say. But what do you think the governor can do? How can he address this? Because, like they say, silence is always consent.
There are several approaches. Right there, and that's what we say, that there is need for us to have professional background and trainings and groomings like that. If I were to be the governor, the moment Chief Olusegun Obasanjo did that, I would have stepped in to express deep respect to the traditional ruler, even in my speech. You know what I mean? And that would have brought it down, even if in a jovial manner or whatever. Because when you come to the Yoruba tradition, in the Yoruba land, kings are called Igbakeji Orisha. And I will translate that, which is like deputy to God. They are called representatives in the society. You see, so you need to honor them. A king in the Bible was so powerful. When Jesus Christ was born, he ordered the killings of all male children, and nothing happened. We are not saying that authority should be mismanaged. But it's a supreme, within the human sphere, it's a supreme authority. So, and I also want to advise the Council of Traditional Leaders to go on a conference and find out where this disrespect loophole started coming in. I recall at a time in the days of Abacha, when we had reports that some kings went to Abuja and whether they were prostrating for, I don't know, and they watched a film and things. No. That authority must be preserved. And that's why at a time when kings were going to Aso Villa to ask President Muhammadu Buhari, former President Muhammadu Buhari, that there should be security in Nigeria, I was not happy about it. You should be inviting them to come and meet you. You see, so there are several public relations implications to this. Maybe next time a governor has an event now and traditional leaders are invited, they won't show up. They won't show up because their word should be, the Bible says, where the word of a king is, there is power, there is authority. This is a very serious case, but we have public relations practitioners that can help the governor himself, because whether he likes it or not, he's part of this in history. And like I said, it could have saved the situation right there, even through a jovial approach. Because Chief Olusegun Obasanjo came all the way from Ogun State to Oyo State to create a crisis now. He is back to his Ogun State. And you know the stance of Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. And I'm not sure he is willing to apologize to anyone. In fact, one of his wives, came out to attempt an apology, and he disowned the wife. So I think that military nature in him is stronger than the traditional elements in him. I mean, by way of personal opinion. But the traditional institution must be protected.
Right.
And the traditional institution
is
sent to protect
Mr.
the
Logo,
of the city.
Right, we have about a minute or thereabout, but if you would sum up your submissions as to perhaps reforms, some have called for maybe a ministry of traditional affairs or something, but in a way to preserve, the legacies and, what our traditional leadership system represents. What reforms would be critical for you moving forward?
I will throw that before the thrones of the traditional rulers with all due respect. You see, when you stand for good governance, when you stand for the security and the welfare of the citizens, the governance institutions will respect you more. And I think that can be decoded because sovereignty belongs to the people and traditional leaders are the first points of contact with the people at the traditional level. So when they begin to represent the interests of the citizens and demand for good governance, all this will happen. We are talking of ministries. We have ministries of chieftaincy affairs. We have in Lagos, we have in some other states. These ministries are there, but we are talking about practical relevance, practical effectiveness. And I'm happy that this is now bringing the Council of Traditional Leaders together to reinvent. So this is the time to reinvent and give energy and vigor to traditional institutions. But we are monitoring to see how this will go, whether Chief Olusegun Obasanjo apologizes or not. Somebody has come to disturb the hornet's nest, and things must be settled for posterity's sake. But I am on the side of respecting traditional institutions. And may I end with the saying of a wise man that respect cannot be forced, respect can only be earned. God bless Nigeria. God bless our traditional institutions.
Jide Ologo, the lawyer and social development advocate, many thanks for speaking with us on TVC Breakfast.